The night was cold, the rain falling hard against the tall iron gates of a mansion on the hills of Los Angeles. Inside, behind glittering glass windows, sat Ethan Walker, a millionaire CEO who had everything money could buy, but nothing his heart truly needed. His daughter was away, his wife gone, and silence filled the halls like a heavy shadow. Just then, a small voice cut through the storm. Ethan froze. Standing at the gates was a little girl, drenched in rain, her thin arms hugging a torn blanket. She whispered, trembling but steady, "Mister, do you know what it feels like to be forgotten?" The world seemed to stop. Ethan's chest tightened. For all his wealth, he had no answer. In that fragile question from a homeless child, his life was about to change forever. Before we dive into the story, make sure to hit subscribe button and like the video, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The storm passed by morning, leaving the city washed in silver light. From his wide glass balcony, Ethan Walker stood in silence. He was only 42, but the deep lines around his eyes carried the weight of decades. Once celebrated as a powerful millionaire CEO, Ethan now felt like a prisoner in his own mansion. The marble floors stretched endlessly through the empty rooms. Chandeliers sparkled, but they cast light on no one. His little daughter Grace stayed most of the time with her grandmother, miles away, because Ethan was too consumed with work and grief. His wife, the love of his youth, had passed years earlier, leaving a hole no business empire could ever fill. Ethan had built his fortune with determination and ruthless decisions. Reporters once called him the rising billionaire. But behind the headlines was a man who lay awake at night, staring at ceilings, asking why all his success still felt empty. Down below, just a few streets away, the city told a very different story. There, under the broken neon sign of a diner, a little girl named Lily curled up beside a cardboard box. She had no father, no mother, no family to call her own. Her clothes were thin, her shoes torn. The cold bit at her tiny body, but she hugged a small stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. Lily survived on scraps of food offered by strangers, per days spent watching people hurry by. Some ignored her. Some gave her coins. Most just looked away, as though her very existence made them uncomfortable. But her eyes carried something different. Not just pain, but a strange strength, a resilience that made even passing strangers feel a sudden ache in their hearts. That morning, Ethan's black limousine rolled past the diner. He barely noticed her, just another shadow on the sidewalk. But Lily noticed him. Through the window, she saw a man sitting alone, wearing a suit worth more than she had ever imagined, yet looking as lost as she felt. Inside the car, Ethan's phone buzzed. His assistant's voice came sharp and nervous. "Sir, the board is restless. Investors are losing faith. They're saying you've gone soft. The rival CEO is waiting like a shark. You need to show strength again." Ethan hung up without a word. He didn't need reminding. His empire was shaking. His rivals circled like vultures. And yet, the thought of another boardroom battle filled him with emptiness. When the limousine stopped at a light, Ethan turned his head slightly. For just a second, his eyes met Lily's. Her gaze was steady, piercing, far older than her years. Ethan quickly looked away, unsettled. Something in those eyes reminded him of Grace when she was small. The same innocence mixed with quiet pain. That evening, while the city lights flickered on, Ethan returned to his mansion. He sat at the dining table alone. A feast had been laid out by the house staff: roasted chicken, fresh bread, fine wine. But he ate nothing. The silence pressed against him. He missed Grace's laughter. He missed his wife's voice. He missed the simple sound of family. Outside, the rain returned. And in that storm, Lily wandered near the hills, her blanket soaked, her rabbit pressed tight to her chest. She had no idea where her feet were carrying her, until she stood once again before the tall iron gates of Ethan's mansion. She didn't plan to stop. She didn't even know why she had come. But the gates looked like hope, and when she whispered through the storm, "Mister, do you know what it feels like to be forgotten?" The world of a millionaire and the world of a homeless little girl suddenly collided. Ethan tried to shake off the moment. He told himself it was nothing, just a stray child. Yet that question burned in his mind. Forgotten. He, a man with wealth and power, felt it deeply. She, a girl with nothing, spoke it with truth. The contrast was too powerful to ignore. And so, without realizing it, Ethan Walker's story, once defined by money, power, and loneliness, had begun to shift. The rain had not stopped all night. The city streets glistened under flickering lamps. The sound of tires rushing through puddles, echoing in the distance. At the gates of Ethan Walker's mansion, Lily remained, her frail body trembling as the cold cut through her thin sweater. Inside, Ethan tried to ignore it. He poured himself a glass of wine, switched on the fireplace, and pretended not to hear the faint knocking at the iron gates. But something in his chest refused to let go of that voice. Do you know what it feels like to be forgotten? Minutes passed. The knocking stopped. Silence returned. Ethan exhaled in relief, convincing himself she had gone. But when he glanced outside, his relief turned into shock. The girl had collapsed. Her small figure lay motionless in the rain. The stuffed rabbit still clutched tightly in her arms. The CEO panicked. For the first time in years, Ethan dropped his glass, shattering it against the marble floor. His heart pounded as he rushed through the mansion, fumbling with the door. By the time he reached the gates, his hands shook. He hadn't run like this in years. "Hey, kid!" His voice was unsteady. He lifted the gate's latch and knelt beside her. Her lips were pale, her eyelids heavy. She tried to speak, but only a weak breath came out. Ethan didn't think. He scooped her up in his arms and carried her inside, rain dripping onto the polished marble floor as his expensive suit clung to his skin. He placed her gently on the couch, shouting for his house staff. "Blankets, water, now!" His voice shook. His staff stared in shock. Their boss, the cold and untouchable CEO, holding a soaked, shivering child against his chest. Everyone froze. When Lily's eyes fluttered open, she whispered, "Why did you help me?" Ethan, out of breath, searched for words. "Because I couldn't leave you there." She studied him carefully, as if measuring his soul. Then, with surprising strength in her small voice, she said, "Rich people don't stop for kids like me." The words cut deeper than any rival's insult. Later, as she warmed by the fire, Ethan sat across from her. He tried to keep his voice firm. "What's your name?" "Lily." She hugged her rabbit tightly. "My mom used to call me her little flower. She's gone now." Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to ask more, but something in her eyes, that mixture of sadness and courage, stopped him. Hours passed. He told himself she couldn't stay, that tomorrow he would call someone, maybe the city shelter. But then Lily looked up at him, her voice steady but soft. "Do you ever feel like you have everything but nothing at all?" Ethan froze. No board member, no billionaire rival, no business speech had ever struck him like that. He, A millionaire who had private jets and mansions had just been exposed by a homeless child with nothing but a stuffed rabbit. From that night on, something shifted. Ethan started noticing her presence in small ways. The way she carefully folded the blanket she borrowed. The way she thanked the cook for even a single slice of bread. She carried herself with dignity, even in her rags. And though he never admitted it out loud, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Responsibility. But as dawn broke and the city woke, Ethan knew this fragile bond was only the beginning. He had no idea what storms it would invite into his already crumbling life. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that the little girl at his gate was more than just a stranger. She was about to become his miracle. Morning light spilled across the mansion's white walls. Ethan Walker sat at the edge of his bed, staring at his phone. It buzzed with messages. Investors demanding updates, his lawyer urging meetings, rivals whispering about his weakness. But all he could hear was the sound of a child's voice from the night before. Do you ever feel like you have everything, but nothing at all? Downstairs, Lily was quietly sipping hot chocolate the cook had given her. Her small hands clutched the mug as though it was treasure. When Ethan entered, she smiled shyly. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a strange warmth in his home. But it didn't last. That afternoon, his business partner, Richard Hale, arrived unannounced. Richard was a slick man in his 50s, known for his ruthless hunger for power. The moment he saw Lily, sitting on the couch with her stuffed rabbit, his brows arched. "What's this?" Richard smirked. Ethan Walker, the powerful millionaire CEO, turning his mansion into a shelter? Ethan's jaw tightened. She needed help. Richard laughed coldly. Help or distraction? No wonder your empire is slipping. While you play father to strays, your rivals are circling. Do you want to lose everything? Lily looked down, embarrassed, clutching her rabbit tighter. Ethan's fists clenched, but before he could speak, Richard leaned closer. His voice turned sharp. Listen to me, Ethan. This girl will ruin you. Investors don't want a tear-jerking sob story. They want results. If you keep her here, you're finished. When Richard left, the silence was heavy. Lily whispered, I can go. I don't want to cause trouble. Ethan's chest ached at her words. No, Lily, you're not the problem. Don't ever think that. That night, as rain tapped the windows, Lily opened up. Her voice was small, but steady. My mom worked as a waitress. She was all I had. She used to say we didn't need to be rich, just kind. But one day, she got sick, really sick. Lily's eyes welled with tears. We couldn't afford the hospital. She told me to be brave. Then, she never came back. Her words were simple, but they hit Ethan like a hammer. He remembered hospital corridors, the smell of antiseptic, the moment he lost his own wife. He remembered Grace, small and scared, asking him why Mommy wasn't coming home. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm sorry, Lily. She nodded, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. It's okay. I still have my rabbit. He's all I have left. She hugged the ragged toy to her chest. For Ethan, the sight was unbearable. He, a millionaire, had rooms filled with things he never touched. She, a homeless child, had only a broken toy and memories. The contrast tore at him. Days passed. Lily's presence slowly softened the mansion. She laughed with the staff, left drawings on the kitchen counter, and even coaxed a smile from Ethan when she compared his stern face to a grumpy bear. But not everyone was pleased. One evening, the mansion's head of security confronted Ethan. Sir, with respect, people are talking. A homeless girl living here? The neighbors are asking questions. It doesn't look good. Ethan's eyes hardened. She stays. But whispers spread. Tabloids snapped photos. Headlines flared. Millionaire CEO hides homeless girl in mansion. Social media exploded with cruel jokes. Investors grew restless. One night, as Ethan entered the living room, he froze. His staff stood stiffly as the head of security dragged Lily toward the door, her stuffed rabbit dangling from her hand. Everyone froze. "What do you think you're doing?" Ethan's voice thundered. "She doesn't belong here, sir," the guard said firmly. "It's for your own good, for the company, for your image." Ethan's chest heaved, anger boiling in his veins. He strode forward and pulled Lily gently behind him. "Nobody puts her out. Nobody." His voice shook with raw emotion. "If anyone has a problem, they can leave, not her." The staff lowered their eyes. The room fell silent. Lily looked up at Ethan, her eyes shimmering with tears. That night, as she lay in the guest room, she whispered through the door, "Why are you doing this for me?" Ethan leaned against the wall, his voice soft. "Because once, I needed someone to fight for me, and no one did." For the first time in years, Ethan felt something powerful stir inside him. Not ambition, not greed, but purpose. Yet he knew Richard wouldn't stop. He knew the world outside would keep pushing. And deep down, Ethan feared that Lily's fragile hope might shatter under the weight of his collapsing empire. But one thing was certain, he could no longer imagine his life without her. The weeks that followed were brutal. News outlets painted Ethan Walker as a man who had lost control. "Millionaire CEO risking empire for a homeless child," the headlines sneered. Investors pulled back. Contracts dissolved. Rumors spread that his rival, Richard Hale, was quietly buying shares to seize Ethan's company. Inside the mansion, Ethan stood at the window, fists clenched. Every call he received ended the same: sell, step down, save what's left. But when he turned, he saw Lily sitting on the floor, humming softly while drawing with broken crayons the cook had found for her. On the paper was a shaky sketch of Ethan, Lily, and Grace, all three holding hands under a sun. His chest ached. That picture felt more valuable than all the deals slipping through his fingers. Still, the storm outside grew darker. One night, Richard returned, uninvited, his voice sharp with triumph. "It's over, Ethan. The board will meet tomorrow. They'll choose me. You've become weak, sentimental, a millionaire who forgets what made him rich." Ethan's voice was low but steady. "What made me rich was never money." Richard laughed. "We'll see if they believe that when you're stripped of everything." The next day, Ethan walked into the grand boardroom, shoulders heavy, but eyes burning with determination. The air was thick with judgment. Executives whispered. Papers shuffled. Richard sat at the head of the table, smirking, ready to strike. The meeting began with harsh words. "Ethan, your decisions are reckless. Bringing a homeless girl into your home? Investors fear you've lost focus. You're costing us millions." Ethan tried to speak, but Richard cut in. "Step aside, Ethan. Let someone strong lead. You don't belong at the top anymore." For a moment, Ethan felt crushed. The weight of failure, of grief, of loneliness pressed against him. He glanced at the doorway and froze. Lily stood there, holding her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide but unflinching. She had overheard everything. Her small voice trembled, yet carried across the room. "He belongs at the top because he has a heart." Everyone froze. Gasps echoed through the boardroom. The hardened men and women who ruled with money stared at the little girl as though she were a ghost. Ethan's throat tightened. He rose slowly, his hands gripping the edge of the table. For years he had given speeches about profits, growth, strategy. But this time, his words were raw. "You call me weak," he began, his voice breaking. "But I was weaker when I cared only about money. I lost my wife chasing numbers. I lost my daughter's childhood trying to stay ahead. And when this girl appeared at my gate, I saw in her eyes what I had become, a man with everything and nothing." His voice grew stronger, trembling with truth. "She may be homeless, but she gave me something billions couldn't. She gave me hope. She reminded me that kindness is not weakness, it is power." The room fell silent. Even Richard's smirk faltered. Ethan's eyes burned with tears as he looked at Lily. "I will not abandon her. Not for you. Not for money. Not for anything." Lily's small hand clutched her rabbit tighter, her eyes glistening. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt safe. Truly safe. The silence was shattered when Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Pathetic," he spat. "This is business, not charity. You'll regret this, Ethan. I'll destroy you." But his words rang hollow against the echo of Ethan's speech. At that moment, Ethan wasn't just a millionaire CEO fighting for control of a company. He was a father fighting for family, a man rediscovering his soul. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others shifted uncomfortably, as though Lily's courage had exposed their own emptiness. But before any decision could be made, a sudden sound cut through the room, a faint cough. Ethan spun around. Lily swayed unsteadily, her small frame trembling. Her lips were pale again, her breathing shallow. The rabbit slipped from her hands. "Lily!" Ethan's voice cracked as he rushed forward, catching her before she collapsed. Panic erupted. The powerful boardroom, once filled with arrogance, now drowned in chaos. Paper scattered, voices shouted, but all Ethan could see was Lily's fragile body in his arms. Her faint whisper reached his ear. "Don't forget me." Tears blurred his vision. He cradled her close, ignoring the gasps and whispers around him. For the first time, the mighty CEO's power meant nothing. His entire world was a trembling child in his arms. And as he carried her out of the boardroom, past stunned faces, a single truth echoed in his heart. He would give up every dollar, every title, every ounce of power, if it meant saving her. The world outside the boardroom blurred. All Ethan could hear was Lily's shallow breathing against his chest as he carried her into the night. His luxury car waited at the curb, but for once, it didn't feel like enough. "Hospital, now," he shouted to his driver, panic lacing his voice. The sleek limousine tore through the streets of Los Angeles, its polished leather and gold trim mocking the fragile child lying across Ethan's lap. He held her hand tightly, whispering over and over, "Stay with me, Lily. Stay with me." But her eyes fluttered shut. Ethan's mind flashed back to another hospital years ago. The sterile white corridors, the sound of machines, the moment his wife slipped away. He remembered Grace's small voice crying, "Daddy, please don't let Mommy go." He had failed once. He would not fail again. When they reached the hospital, doctors rushed Lily away. Ethan followed, only to be stopped by a nurse. "Sir, you can't enter." "The hell I can't!" His voice shook with desperation. But when the doors closed in his face, his knees nearly gave out. For the first time in years, the millionaire CEO dropped to the floor, his head in his hands, sobbing. Richard's words echoed in his mind. "You'll regret this. I'll destroy you." Maybe Richard was right. Maybe the empire was slipping through his fingers. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Because for the first time, Ethan knew exactly what was worth saving. Hours passed. Ethan sat in the waiting room, his expensive suit wrinkled, his hair damp from sweat. He ignored the buzzing phone in his pocket. Missed calls from lawyers, from investors, from people who still worshipped money above all else. Finally, a doctor approached. She's stable, for now, but malnutrition and infection have taken their toll. She needs care. She needs family. Family. The word stabbed Ethan's heart. He had the money. He had the mansion. But family? That was something he'd almost lost completely. He stepped into the hospital room. Lily lay pale against the white sheets, her stuffed rabbit tucked beside her. Her eyes opened slowly, weak, but still shining with that strange strength. "You didn't leave me," she whispered. Ethan gripped her hand. "I never will." At that moment, something inside Ethan shattered and rebuilt. The walls of steel he had built around his heart crumbled. The millionaire, the CEO, the powerful man feared by rivals, he was gone. What remained was simply a father. And in that clarity, he understood. Kindness was not weakness. It was the greatest strength he had ever known. The next morning, Ethan held a press conference. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, but his voice was calm, steady, and filled with truth. "I am Ethan Walker. I have been called a millionaire, a CEO, even a future billionaire. But none of that matters anymore, because last night I almost lost a child who reminded me what life is really about. I will not apologize for kindness. I will not apologize for protecting her. And if that costs me my empire, so be it." The crowd fell silent. The words were not rehearsed. They were raw, heart-touching, tear-jerking. And for once, even the harshest critics found themselves moved. Richard, standing in the back, seethed with rage. But the people watching at home, ordinary men and women, parents and children, the poor and forgotten, saw something different. They saw a powerful man, stripped of pride, daring to stand for love. And hearts across the city stirred. Donations poured into shelters. Families stepped forward to help. Investors, once ready to abandon Ethan, called back. Not all, but enough. Because they realized the world didn't need another ruthless billionaire. It needed a leader with a soul. Back in the hospital, Ethan returned to Lily's side. She reached for his hand, tears in her eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. "No, Lily," Ethan said softly, brushing her hair from her forehead. "You saved me. You reminded me that money can build walls, but kindness builds homes." Her lips curved into a small smile. For the first time in years, Ethan smiled back. Not the fake smile of business deals, but a real one, born from love. As the days passed, Ethan made his choice clear. He restructured his company, investing millions into community programs for children like Lily. He faced backlash. He faced Richard's endless sabotage, but he didn't care. Because each night, when Lily laughed with grace at the dinner table, the mansion no longer felt like a hollow palace. It felt like home, and in those moments, Ethan realized the truth. In a world of billionaires and rivals, the greatest fortune he ever received was a miracle that arrived in the rain, in the form of a homeless little girl. A soft glow filled the mansion dining room. The long oak table, once a place of silence and untouched meals, now overflowed with laughter, food, and warmth. Ethan Walker sat at the head, his daughter Grace on one side, and Lily on the other, her stuffed rabbit propped up like an honored guest. The sound of forks clinking, children giggling, and the faint crackle of the fireplace made Ethan pause, soaking it all in. For years, his wealth had built walls. Now, kindness had torn those walls down, and the echoes of family filled the emptiness. After dinner, Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Can we show you something?" Grace grinned. "It's a surprise." The two girls pulled Ethan into the living room. On the mantel, where once only cold art pieces had stood, there now rested a small framed picture, Lily's crayon drawing. The one of all three of them holding hands under a shining sun. Ethan's eyes blurred with tears. The symbol was simple, childlike, imperfect, but it was life-changing. He whispered, "This is worth more than any empire." Lily hugged him tightly. Grace wrapped her arms around them both. For the first time in years, Ethan felt complete. After 1 year, the city skyline shimmered under the California sun. Billboards once displaying luxury products now carried Ethan's new company message: kindness is power. Under Ethan's leadership, his empire transformed. He invested not in greed, but in hope. Programs for the poor, shelters for children, scholarships for the forgotten. Critics had mocked him. Rivals tried to sabotage him, but his vision spread like wildfire. Investors who once doubted now applauded. Ordinary people inspired by his stand followed his example. But for Ethan, the true wealth was not in the numbers. It was in the small things. Lily riding her bike for the first time down the mansion driveway, Grace cheering by her side. Family dinners filled with laughter instead of silence. A small rabbit with one missing ear, still sitting proudly at the table every night. At night, Ethan often walked the balcony, staring at the stars. His wife's memory still lived in his heart, but now the ache was softened by the family he had rebuilt. He whispered thanks for the miracle he had been given. Not money, not status, but love. One evening, as the girls played in the garden, Ethan knelt by the mantel again. He touched the crayon drawing and smiled. His voice was soft, but full of peace. "I once thought being a millionaire made me powerful, but true power, true wealth, is this." Behind him, Lily's voice rang out bright and free. "Come on, Daddy, don't miss the game." He turned, laughter breaking across his face as he joined the girls in the backyard. The camera of life pulled back. The mansion glowing not with cold lights, but with warmth, joy, and family. And with that, Ethan Walker's story closed, not as a tale of riches or rivalry, but as a soul-stirring reminder that miracles often come in the smallest, most unexpected forms. Sometimes they arrive in the rain, holding nothing but a broken toy and a heart full of hope. And so, Ethan Walker's life was changed forever, not by money, not by power, but by the miracle of kindness, love, and family. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe our channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Because here at Echoes of Hope, every story reminds us that even in the darkest storms, a single act of kindness can light the way. This was Echoes of Hope, where every heartbeat tells a story. Thanks for watching.